Reading lesson 116, video part 2. Today is chapter 26, Found and Lost Again. Let's go over today's questions before we begin our reading. Why did Tom tie a string to a rock? How did the children find the spring? Why did it take so long for the search to get started? Explain why pitfalls were such a problem for Tom and Becky. What do you think Outlaw Joe was doing in the cave? Keep this in mind for your writing today. Because their candles have burned out, Tom and Becky are in the complete darkness. Close your eyes and pretend you are in complete darkness. Then write a description of everything you hear, smell, taste, and touch. You can also describe what you think and feel, but do not describe anything you normally see. Think about the following questions. How is the world different from when you can't see anything? When your eyes are closed, which senses are you most aware of? Do sounds seem to change when you close your eyes? Why or why not? How does darkness change your thoughts and feelings? Make your description at least 80 words long. Now, let's begin today's reading. Tom and Becky rose and wandered along, hand in hand and hopeless. They tried to estimate how long they had been in the cave, but all they knew was that it seemed days and weeks. Yet it was plain that this could not be, for their candles were not gone yet. A long time after this, they could not tell how long, Tom said they must go softly and listen for dripping water. They must find a spring. They found one presently, and Tom said it was time to rest again. Both children were cruelly tired, yet Becky said she thought she could go on a little farther. She was surprised to hear Tom disagree. She could not understand it. They sat down, and Tom fastened his candle to the wall in front of them with some clay. Nothing was said for some time. Then Becky broke the silence. "Tom, I am so hungry." Tom took something out of his pocket. "Do you remember this?" he said. Becky almost smiled. "It's cake from the picnic, Tom." "Yes, and I wish it was as big as a barrel, for it's all we got." Tom divided the cake. Becky ate with good appetite while Tom nibbled at the piece. There was plenty of cold water to finish the feast with. By and by, Becky suggested they move on. Tom was silent a moment. Then he said, "Becky, can you bear it if I tell you something?" Becky's face paled, but she thought she could. "Well then, Becky, we must stay here where there's water to drink. That little piece is our last candle." Becky sat in the silence for a while. At last she said, "Tom!" "What, Becky?" "They'll miss us and hunt for us." "Yes, they will. Certainly they will. Maybe they're hunting for us now, Tom." "Why, I reckon maybe they are." "I hope they are." "When would they miss us, Tom?" "When they get back to the boat, I reckon." "Tom, it might be dark then. Would they notice we hadn't come?" "I don't know, but your mother would miss you as soon as they got home." A frightened look in Becky's face brought Tom to his senses. He saw that he had made a blunder. Becky was not expected to come home that night. The children became silent and thoughtful in a moment. A worried look from Becky showed Tom that they were thinking the same thing. Sunday morning might be half spent before Miss Thatcher discovered Becky was missing. The children fastened their eyes upon their bit of a candle and watched it melt slowly and pitilessly away. They saw the half-inch of wick stand alone at last. They saw the feeble flame rise and fall, climb the thin column of smoke, linger at its top a moment, and then the horror of utter darkness surrounded them. The children went to sleep. After what seemed like a long stretch of time, both awoke and resumed their miseries once more. Tom said it might be Sunday now, maybe Monday. He tried to get Becky to talk, but all their hopes were gone. Tom said the search was probably going on by now. He would shout, and maybe someone would come. He tried, but the distant echoes sounded so hideous in the darkness that he did not shout any more. The hours wasted away, and the hunger came to torment the captives again. A portion of Tom's cake was left. They divided it and ate it, but they seemed hungrier than before. By and by, Tom said, "Shh! Did you hear that?" Both held their breath and listened. There was a sound like the faintest far-off shout. Instantly, Tom answered it, leading Becky by the hand. He started groping down the corridor in its direction. Presently, he listened again. Again, the sound was heard, and apparently a little nearer. "It's them," said Tom. "They're coming. Come along, Becky. We're all right now." There they are. The joy of the prisoners was almost overwhelming. Their speed was slow, however, because pitfalls were common. They shortly came to a pitfall and had to stop. It might be 3 feet deep. It might be 100. There was no passing it, at any rate. Tom got down on his chest and reached as far as he could. No bottom. They must stay there and wait until the searchers came. As they listened, the distant shouting grew more distant. A moment or two more, and it was gone altogether. The heart-sinking misery of it. Tom whooped until he was hoarse, but it was no use. He talked hopefully to Becky, but an age of anxious waiting passed, and no sounds came. The children groped their way back to the spring. The weary time dragged on. They slept again and awoke famished. Tom believed it must be Tuesday by this time. Now an idea struck him. There were some side passages near at hand. It would be better to explore some of these than to remain at the spring. He took a string from his pocket and tied it to a rock. Then he and Becky started down a passage. Here's one of those questions starting right there. Tom was in the lead and unwound the line as he groped along. At the end of the 20 steps, the corridor ended in a jumping off place. Tom got down on his knees and felt below, and then as far as around the corner as he could reach with his hands. He made an effort to stretch, yet a little farther to the right, and at that moment, not 20 yards away, a human hand holding a candle appeared from behind a rock. Tom let out a glorious shout, and instantly the hand was followed by the body it belonged to. Outlaw Joe's. Tom was paralyzed. He could not move. He was vastly relieved to see the outlaw take to his heels and get himself out of sight. He was amazed that Joe had not recognized his voice and come over and killed him for testifying in court. But the echoes must have disguised his voice. Tom's fright weakened every muscle in his body. He said to himself that if he had strength enough to get back to the spring, he would stay there, and nothing would tempt him to run the risk of meeting Outlaw Joe again. He was careful not to tell Becky what he had seen. He told her that he had only shouted for luck. But hunger is greater than fear. Another tedious wait at the spring and another long sleep brought changes. The children awoke tortured with a raging hunger. Tom believed it must be Wednesday or Thursday or even Friday or Saturday. Now and that the search had been given up. Tom proposed to explore another passage. He felt willing to risk Outlaw Joe and all the other terrors. But Becky was very sick. She said she would wait now where she was and die. It would not be long. She told him to go with the string and explore if he chose, but she begged him to come back every little while and speak to her. She made him promise that when the awful time came for her to die, he would stay by her and hold her hand until all was over. Tom kissed her with a choking feeling in his throat. Then he took the string in his hand and went groping down one of the passages on his hands and knees, distressed with hunger and sick with a sense of coming doom. And that concludes lesson 116. You will need to do logic, outlining, I'll read this to you. Write an outline for the following passage. For each paragraph, write the main idea for the 3 supporting details. Use complete sentences. Saturday morning came, and all the summer world was bright with fresh and brimming with life. There was a song in every heart, a cheer in every face, and a spring in every step. The locust trees were in bloom, and the fragrance of the blossoms filled the air. Tom appeared on the sidewalk with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He viewed the fence. All gladness left him, and a deep melancholy settled on his spirit. He had to whitewash 30 yards of board fence 9 feet high. Life to him seemed hollow and living on just a burden. So, comprehension. 1. Why did Tom tie a string to a rock? So he wouldn't get lost when they explored the cave in the dark. 2. How did the children find the spring? They listened for dripping water. Why did it take so long for the search to get started? Because nobody noticed Tom and Becky were missing. When the steamboat left, because nobody noticed when Tom and Becky were missing when the steamboat left, because Miss Thatcher wasn't expecting Becky until Sunday. Explain why pitfalls were such a problem for Tom and Becky. After their candles burned out, they couldn't see the pitfalls, which are deep holes in the ground. When they came to a pitfall, they had to stop because they didn't know how deep or wide it was. What do you think Outlaw Joe was doing in the cave? Hiding from the sheriff, taking the treasure to his hiding place, or maybe just living there. All right, your independent work begins now. Get busy.